In this video, I'll show you how to calculate a Fibonacci sequence in JavaScript. So a Fibonacci sequence is essentially a sequence that starts off with a 0 and 1, and then all the other numbers in this Fibonacci sequence are basically the sum of its previous two numbers. So if we start with 0 and 1, 0 plus 1 is 1. So that's the third number in the sequence. Then we take the last two numbers, 1 and 1, that becomes a 2, and 1 and 2 becomes a 3, 2 and 3 become a 5, 3 and 5 become an 8, etc., etc. The Fibonacci sequence is the foundation, the mathematical foundation for the golden ratio. So basically, I've already started writing a Fibonacci function that is going to take a num value, where num is just a value that the user picks, and to decide how many numbers in the Fibonacci sequence they want our function to output. Then we start with an empty array. We're starting with an empty array in this function because that's where we are going to be pushing in these values and calculate the Fibonacci sequence. We also have a 0 value, which is the starting point of the Fibonacci sequence, and a 1 value, which is the next number in the Fibonacci sequence. Then we're doing a while loop where we're setting the value of the passed-in num to be greater than 0, and while num is greater than 0, the loop is going to iterate over. Then for each number that we are counting down, we are going to push the current value of num into the array. And on each loop, we are also going to lower the value of num by 1 and reassign it to num. So this is crucial here for our while loop to basically lower the value of num and bring it to 0. Otherwise, this would be a loop that would never stop. So finally, we have the console log output of the ARR value. And here we see the count down from 5, which is the number that we passed to the Fibonacci invocation, and to the value of 1. Okay, so that's our starting point. And now let me show you how you can basically make this Fibonacci sequence work. So the first implementation is already here. Now we need to think about how to push the correct items into the array. The trick here is to have an intermediate sum value. So sum, and we're not going to assign any value to the sum variable. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep using num for the count of my iterations, but now I'm going to push the value of sum into the array. And as you can see, with this change, everything is undefined, but we still get 5 undefined values in the array. So what I need to do now is basically set the sum to the value of first plus second. So the first value is the 0 value, as we know, and the second value is the value of 1. So it's all good, but now I'm getting 5 ones right here. However, since I know that the next number in my Fibonacci series will always be the sum of the previous first and second number, what I need to do is update the first and second number to the newly pushed member of the array. So the way that I'm going to do this is by reassigning the value of first and second after I've pushed the value of sum on the current iteration. So first is going to be set, or I'm going to set the value of the second into the first variable, and I'm going to set the value of sum into the second variable. And this is essentially the solution. So the trick here really is the following. We are starting with the first and the second numbers defined. We have also the sum variable that's going to help us in the calculation. We have an empty array. So then what we do is we push the value of sum into the array But of course, on the first iteration, we start by adding the values of first and second and saving it to that sum variable. And also, we are doing all of this in the while loop, which means we are looping from whatever the num value the user passed in, and we're counting down to the value of 0. Okay, so once the num is at 0, 0 is not greater than 0, so the while loop is going to exit. And now it's all a matter of updating the value of the updating the value of the first variable by reassigning to it the value of the current second variable, and updating the second variable by reassigning to it the value of the current sum variable. And of course, to make the while loop count down, we need to subtract a 1 from the current value of num and assign it to num. And that's it, a very simple implementation of the Fibonacci sequence in JavaScript.